Oceania. The world is producing approximately 120 million bags of 60 kilos of coffee a year, and the coffee is the main source of livelihood for up to 25 million families. I came from a family of coffee growers, and I have been working with coffee in the coffee sector for more than 20 years. Exactly 1 month ago, I took over the role of the executive director of the ICO, the International Coffee Organization. The International Coffee Organization, it's an intergovernmental organization founded almost 60 years ago with the main goal to be the forum for discussions to face the great challenges and opportunities of the sector. Its members are coffee exporters countries and also coffee importing countries. This means that we have all the production countries with us and also the majority of the consumption countries also with us. And we are always striving the fair supply chain for our coffee sector. The ICO board is drafting right now the new international coffee agreement with some modernizations that include partnerships between governments and the private sector to promote discussions and stimulate creative and responsible alternatives to the challenge. This is very important. We are looking for alternatives, but we are always need to be innovative, creative, but also with a lot of responsibility. We all want a good planet to live on. We all want a better life for the population. And that's why we are here today with the Colombian Coffee Federation, FNC, European Coffee Federation, CENI Café, La Mesa, Clean Tech Hub, and all of you. Thank you for this opportunity, and let's share our perspectives and our opinions and suggestions about the Green Deal. Thank you.
Manucia, thank you very much. So if anybody has questions for Manucia, then you can leave them in the chat. We will address them later. Manucia will hang around with us a little longer. We're now going to Eileen Gordon. She is the representative, General Secretary of the European Coffee Federation. So Eileen, good afternoon for you. The floor is yours.
Muchas gracias. Muy buenos cualquier hora del día a todos. Hello everyone, and a good time any time of the day. This is what is incredible about virtual meetings. So firstly, thank you so much for your kind invitation to join you today to be able to offer our perspective, the European Coffee Federation's perspective in regards to the EU Green Deal. So before we dig into how it affects us directly as a sector, I would really like to highlight what it is. So over the past years, you probably noted that the EU has taken a leading role from a regulatory perspective, and this is somewhat materialized in the Green Deal, is where they put all the regulations within context. So this context was created at the end of 2019, and the aim is it's the growth strategy for the EU, really. What it aims to do is to put the EU in a path of, it aims to
Eileen, we cannot hear you.
Eileen, can you unmute your computer?
Yeah, great.
Now, yes. Okay, so sorry for that. So in a nutshell, the EU Green Deal wants to transform the EU into a fair and prosperous society, and it wishes for the EU to become the first climate neutral bloc by 2050. A really, really ambitious goal that is going to be implemented by a series of different strategies and policies, over 20 of them. Lots of strategies, and today what we've chosen is 3 that we believe have a direct impact in coffee for producing countries and also for the consuming countries. So starting with the Circular Economy Action Plan, this would be an initiative that affects consuming countries directly. The reason why we bring it up today is just in case Colombia, as an example, decides to import their product directly, a finished product directly into the EU. So the Circular Economy Action Plan, what it is aiming to do is to mainstream circularity. So it's taking the initiatives of front runners and trying to mainstream it for the rest of the players. The main objective is to reduce, reuse, and recycle. So how does it affect coffee? It affects our packaging through the revision of what they call the Packaging Waste Directive and the Packaging and Packaging Waste Framework Directive. So the reason why it affects us, firstly for single-serve units. Today, single-serve units do not fall under the category of packaging. This is something that could happen in this new revision. And the second aspect that affects us is in regards to flexible packaging. Most of our coffee is wrapped up in flexible packaging. And today what they're defining is the content of recyclability. What is the percentage? So they're establishing that for recycling a flexible plastic, there has to be a 95% threshold, which for all of you in the business know is a very, very high one. So this would be something that affects packaging directly and that as ECF we are monitoring very, very closely. And now what I'll do is dive straight into 2 other strategies that will affect producing countries directly. So up until now, we were very much accustomed that initiatives coming from the EU affect industry, this side of the puddle. So it was European industry. But what is happening now is that the EU is broadening their scope and they want to have an impact on the world. They want to be leaders. So by doing so, they're implementing regulations that have a direct impact on producing countries in this case. So the 2 chosen initiatives today would be the Farm to Fork strategy and the biodiversity strategy. So if we start with the Farm to Fork strategy, it's got a very clear challenge that would refer to the reduction in the use of pesticides by 50% by 2030. So the objective of this Farm to Fork strategy is to encourage sustainable production by reducing the use of pesticides and, for instance, by promoting organic production. As a result of a reduction in the use of pesticides, what is happening is that we see a direct impact in the renewal and non-renewal processes of active substances. That would be of pesticides. So the number of pesticides that are being renewed in the EU is decreasing year after year. As a consequence, as a consequence of a non-renewal of the active substance, there is a modification of the maximum residue limit that you can find in green coffee, for instance. So therefore, even though these revisions are taking place in the EU, it would not be possible to import product into the EU that is not compliant with these standards or with these maximum limits. So what we have to do as a sector is really highlight and emphasize to policymakers that the growing conditions that we have in the EU are completely different to those in producing countries such as Colombia. The pests, the diseases that your plantations are confronted with are completely different. Therefore, you need different tools to be able to fight them. So this is something that we're really working on as ECF, really highlighting these challenges. From a technical point of view, what we need to do if there is a non-renewal of the use of an active substance that is quite heavily used in producing countries, such for instance, glyphosate, what we need to do is, from an EU perspective, is request an import tolerance. An import tolerance would be a maximum residue limit that is established uniquely for imported products. So even if there is a non-renewal, there can be an import tolerance that would allow the product to come into the EU. So something that we have to definitely work on jointly to ensure that green coffee can continue to flow into the EU, despite this attempt of reducing the use of pesticides. The second strategy that I would like to refer to today is the biodiversity strategy. And under the umbrella of the biodiversity strategy that aims to mainstream biodiversity and halt biodiversity loss by ensuring a sustainable development of the landscape. The regulation that everyone is familiar with today is the deforestation proposal. a proposal that was shared by the European Commission in November last year, and that today has just started its course within the legislative procedure of the EU and is currently being discussed by the Council of the European Union and by the MEPs, the members of parliament. So in this process is where, as ECF, we have engaged heavily because we are fully aligned with the objective of the regulation. We really do believe in the need to halt deforestation and ensure the regeneration of forests. However, we do find challenges in the technical approach. So in the instruments that they're introducing or the tools that they are proposing to be able to implement this regulation. The two main challenges that we have identified for producing and consuming countries would be the first one, the GPS location of the farms. We're talking about 12.5 million farms located, as Vanusia well referred to, in over 60 producing countries that would need to be GPS. So this means in the EU, we import 150,000 containers of coffee every year. Each container, individual container, can include up to 2,000 references. So each container can contain information from 2,000 coffee farms. So if you do the maths, you will end up with 300 million data entries in an information system. And our question is, does this really contribute to the objective of the regulation? So do we really need to have this information of all these farms to ensure that there is no deforestation? From our perspective, we don't believe so. That would be the first challenge, GPS location coordinates. The second one would be the chain of custody of the information. So to ensure that the appropriate data is generated throughout the supply chain and reaches the container, it is very important that there's a chain of custody of that information or a traceability system. So you know better than anyone that in producing countries such as Colombia, that value chain can be very, very long. So this is, as a fact, 20% of coffee, of all mainstream coffee, is brought directly from voluntary sustainability standards, so certification programs. 30% would come from auctions, cooperatives, or large traders. And then 50% of the coffee that we buy is disenfranchised. So that means that we don't really know exactly where the coffee comes from because of that very, very long supply chain, because of the number of intermediaries, or in countries, for instance, in East Africa, because it's just not feasible. You have to buy coffee from the auction, and therefore there is no traceability from the cooperative that sells to the auction and back. So these are all facts, real facts, that we have put forward to the European Commission. In an aim to be proactive and not just say, well, the technical challenges are impossible and we can't deal with them, what we have done is we've presented a new approach, which would be based on risk assessment. So this is the approach that industry has taken for the past years in all the different projects that they challenge with, and also is being recently very nicely tabled by IDH and ProForest. So in this risk assessment approach, what we are encouraging is that they really focus on where the problem is. So instead of trying to GPS the 12.5 million farms, they focus on the orange and the red areas where there is an issue with deforestation, and that they not only GPS, but that they also monitor very closely what is being done for the regeneration of those areas, because we truly believe that if we want to curb deforestation, we also have to try and promote the regeneration and reforestation. So once again, a totally proactive approach. And I don't want to go over my time. So this the message that we want to give today is collaboration. We really believe that this is an issue that affects us all. We really are doing our utmost to encourage the European Commission to talk with producing countries, because we do feel that you've been left out the equation a little bit, and that they need to open a dialogue with you, because at the end of the day, producing countries are the first ones to benefit from deforestation-free policies, but obviously the first ones affected as well, because firstly, there could be a moment in which it's difficult to import into the EU, and then maybe what is happening is that import is being diverted to other markets. So the risk is being diverted. So at the end of the day, the EU will not comply with this objective. So what we're saying, proportionality principle, believing in the objective, but trying to find the simplest way to be able to ensure that objective. And last but not least, it's highlighting that cooperation, really trying to ensure as well that smallholder farmers are protected, because we believe that they're a little bit left out of the proposal as it stands today. And the last point that we can't emphasize enough is the need for specific guidance documents for the different sectors. So we have 6 or 7 commodities that have been thrown in together in a regulation, and there is the assumption that we all function and work the same. This is not the case. Our supply chain is unique, as it is the one of the palm oil, the cocoa, and the soy. So once again, it's really encouraging that you reach out to your representatives so that they can discuss directly with the WTO and enhance the impact that these proposals can have. Just as Carolina is doing, which is really, really great, the exercise. We've participated in many roundtables together. So that is absolutely wonderful. And we can't encourage enough that your voice is really, truly heard, given that the impact lands on you as well. So thank you for this opportunity for sharing.
Eileen, thank you very much. I find it fascinating to hear about what you mentioned about the 300 million data points. That's definitely, that's crazy, actually. So it's a humongous task, and yeah, thanks for inviting all of us to be part of this, so we can have our voices here. Yeah, so not now, but so let's mute that. But I think it's very important, Eileen, what you're mentioning there, and see what solutions we can come up with in the industry. So I would like to invite, because we're now going to our panel discussion, I'd like to invite the panelists to switch on their cameras. I see Carolina, looking for Pilar is there, Alvaro is there, and Carolina Duran. So first of all, I'd like to present Carolina here. She's going to moderate this panel discussion. Carolina will guide us through basically the framework that was set up by Vanusia and by Eileen, talking about the topics of how can we make this industry circular, what about biodiversity, the farm to fork strategy. I think it's very interesting to go to dive deep into this. So Carolina, the floor is yours, and we can start our panel discussion.
Okay, good morning to everyone, and good afternoon, obviously, for those in another time zone. I am Carolina Duran. I've been working closely with innovation and entrepreneurship all my life. I am currently the ambassador for CleanTech Hub in different aspects. So I'm very proud to be here. And I am part of the Council for Global Innovation Entities. And from there, we define 3 aspects for innovation: how we measure innovation, secondly, what are the best practices and lessons learned, and third, what projects we can do together. I give you this context because in this road to climate resilient coffee industry, it's very important to share these best practices around the world. So I welcome panelists that are present. I don't know if you can turn on your camera so we could do a small photograph, and thank you very much. We can briefly interview each one. Alvaro, Carolina, Pilar, and Gideon, please just turn on your camera and briefly, let's start with Gideon. Say hi, and what is your role and what do you do, and then so on and so forth. And then we'll be Pilar and Carolina, and finishing with Alvaro. Hello, Gideon. How are you?
Hi, Carolina. Fine. Yeah, so we're very happy to be part of this panel discussion and this event, because there's a great opportunity. There's also a great challenge, and that's what Eileen referred to. How can we make the international coffee industry climate resilient, and how can we face those challenges? We believe there's a great opportunity here for entrepreneurship, for clean tech, different innovative ways of trying to solve these challenges, but we need to fix those challenges on the ground. We cannot just import solutions from abroad. Let's say within the coffee exporting countries, we have to figure out how can we come up with solutions to meet those challenges that have been brought to the fore by, in this case, the European Union.
Thank you, Gideon. Pilar, from La Meseta. Bienvenida.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Pilar Jimenez. Can you hear me well? Okay, so I am the CFO of La Meseta. La Meseta is a Colombian company that is in the coffee business. We have been in the market for 40 years. This is a family company that acts as a trading company of green coffee. 700,000 bags in 2021. We're one of the top 10 exporters, but we also participate in plantations. We have almost 900 hectares of coffee planted in the coffee region. This is Chinchiná, the center of Colombia. The company, of course, has a huge environmental and social impact in the region, employing 300 employees, and during harvest season, this could increase almost by 1,500. So we also have our farms certified by Rainforest. We see this Green Deal regulation. We embrace it. We think it's very positive. We would like to understand the tools that will be mainstreamed in order for companies like us and for smallholders to actually understand and implement the measures that are needed to change the practices on the ground to comply with the regulation. And this, of course, may mean that there needs to be a collaboration between the public sector and the private sector to actually get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Pilar. I'm gonna ask Carolina to say hi, to introduce herself. Hola, Caro. And you will be addressing the first question for the panelists. Based on your experience, Caro, what are the implications of the farm to fork strategy for the coffee chain in Colombia?
Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. First of all, my name is Carolina Castañeda. I am the director for Europe of the Colombian Coffee Growers Federation. Our office is based in Amsterdam, and we also cover markets such as Africa and the Middle East. One of the main advantages of the role is that we are an interface for different functions of the Federation and our coffee growers. We do a commercial function in terms of selling coffee to Europe from the National Coffee Fund. We promote Colombian coffee in fairs, in events, in conferences. International cooperation is quite important for us to bring more progress to our coffee farmers and to protect the environment. And also the institutional role is quite important. And here is where the regulatory framework comes into place. And that's why we are here today. And I feel honored to participate in a webinar with so much gender equality of women and men I admire. We have Vanusia, we have Eileen, Carolina Duran, Pilar, Alvaro, and Gideon, and I'm very, very grateful for this. So now going to the first question, and I believe possibly if Alvaro can talk after me because he is the expert on this subject. From farm to fork, one of the main messages we want to convey is we as the Colombian coffee growers and the Colombian coffee farmers are fully committed to the protection of the environment. We believe we need to work together towards this goal because what is estimated is that by 2050, 50% of the suitable land to grow coffee will be reduced. Therefore, we have to take action now, and we have to take action as an industry together with the consumers and together with the regulators from around the world. This is not only a matter of the European Union. So in this sense, what is one of the main concerns, and Alvaro is going to delve into this, the reduction in the use of pesticides, in the use of fertilizers. We first have to understand what are the implications for the coffee farmers and to the farmers around the world. Therefore, our recommendation is to first bring solutions instead of restrictions. Therefore, to try to find what are the best options so that our coffee farmers won't have their productivity reduced trying to reach this goal. Of course, we want to work together to reduce the impact of climate change, but by keeping the access of the coffee farmers first and the implications at the farm level. one of the main messages, and right now I'm in Colombia actually, is that sometimes when you are a regulator in the European Union, you don't live in the tropics. Here in the tropics, one of the main signals of diversity is that you have many insects and bugs and diversity, and you have to work with that in order to grow coffee. That has to be the access of when you regulate, because you cannot only do it from a different latitude. You have to also think what the implications would be in each of our coffee producing countries. And let's think that this is not only a matter of doing a research in one specific producing country. You do need to have research bodies such as Café in the case of Colombia, with the support, for example, of the European Union, of all the coffee industry, to delve into what the implications would be in each of the regions of Colombia. Even here in Colombia, we have 3 mountain ranges, different latitudes, different soil components, and we need to see what the impact would be so that we can bring better solutions on that regards. Thank you, Caro.
Thank you, Carolina. And I wanted to say hello also to Vanusia and to Eileen, who I haven't met in person, but I know of your role throughout the coffee organization and in the Coffee Federation. So I do agree with you, Carolina. I'm very happy to be here in a very equal panel and equal event where women are also taking a stance in the farm and in the coffee producers in this case, which brings a lot of gender equality and development for our nations. Thank you very much for this opportunity to you both. And Alvaro, the floor is yours. Tell me who you are and how do you want to complement what Caro was just talking about a minute ago.
Thank you, Carolina, and hello to everyone. Well, my name is Alvaro Gaitan. I'm the director of the National Research Center, Café, which was created in 1938 and has been funded and supported by Colombian farmers through all these years. With the purpose of having solutions and taking this day to take decisions based on science, which is something that has been very important in Colombia in order to preserve first our environment, which is very delicate. We had a lot of rain through the whole year. We are growing coffee on the mountains, and it means that we have to take care of all this environment that is producing coffee. But also looking for what is our purpose, which is to be economically successful in the business of producing coffee. And that's something very critical when you want to be more productive and you want to reduce the cost of production and of course, increase the value of coffee, making it with a better quality. And finally, today, we are very concerned on the health of not only the coffee producers and the workers in the coffee farms, but also in the health of our customers out there, which are enjoying coffee through the whole year. So that has been the work of Café all these years. And of course, today we're very concerned about all the implications of the farm to work strategy. And I would like to highlight three main points here. The first one is, of course, we have to keep working on the implications of the economic balance between the cost of production and the fair economic return for the farmer. And that implies that any single new action that we take in the farm, it costs us money. So every time we have to go and do something, either in the farm or in the processing of coffee, it is going to be more expensive for the farmer. And we have to find that balance between that cost of production and of course, the affordability of the product out there in the rest of the world. And today is not just a win-win situation between the producer and the consumer. It has to be a win-win-win situation, the producer, the consumer, and the environment. So all the time we have to make all these pieces of the puzzle to match together so we can have that balance working properly. That will be the first implication, and that's to find that balance in the actions that we have to take in the farm to comply with these strategies and the constant regulations that we find everywhere. The second is, of course, we have to be more efficient. try to see how can we use in a better way our resources, either the natural resources and the agricultural resources. And in that particular point, it's very interesting that we see that there is a purpose of reducing the use of pesticides, maybe in a 50% from now until the year 2030. And probably as you were mentioning before, and Carolina was indicating, as the diseases are still there, the insects are still there, the weeds are growing everywhere, so they are not going to stop. We need to keep working on that, and we have to be more efficient in the resources that we have. So basically that means that we have to go into the third implication, that is that we need a stronger support by science, and that's very important, because every single move that we take into the farm is going to have different consequences, not only in the economic side, but also in the ecological and the biodiversity side. So we have to keep working and to keep doing research. We cannot stop on that. And we have to keep our eyes open for innovation, for all these new tools that could probably help us, specifically for the coffee growers, not only in Colombia, but around the world. And here is where we keep looking for alternatives to the current recommendations that we have today. Every time we say that we're going to reduce the use of pesticides, it means that we have to replace that use with something else, right? In our case in Colombia, we have been very focused on the integrated pest management, integrated disease management, integrated weed management. That means that we use different tools in order to keep our crops being productive and not being affected by different diseases and pests. And in that way, we keep asking companies, we keep asking innovators everywhere to see what kind of products they have. But it means that we have to do tests, design experiments, just to see if those new products or new offers are effective to whatever we have to control. It's been hard. We don't find a lot of different or a lot of new products out there in the market. And certainly we will need more investment in research and technology to reach that point. And the second point is that if we want to see and check what kind of levels or what kind of residues we have on the coffee beans, we need to have better support in the technical side. And it means that having availability for detection systems, for equipment to check for those tiny amounts of residues that can be found in coffee beans. And certainly for us as producers, we will need either faster and cheaper ways to check how our coffee is getting out before it leaves the country. So that's another point that is really important. So finally, I would like to mention something that is critical for us and it has been very important in Colombia, and is our capacity to transfer the information that we develop as scientists or that we find in the market, to transfer that information to the coffee growers. And that's something that is important in the sense that if the growers don't get the right information and the information in time, they cannot adopt these new practices that we would like them to implement in order to comply with all these different requirements. So certainly we have a lot of implications from the farm to fork strategy, and we have a lot of challenges that we need to work together in order to comply with this new situation that we have. Thank you, Carolina.
You are on mute.
Hi, I'm sorry, I was speaking with my mute. We're going to move a little bit forward in the topics from farm to fork into a new topic. And maybe Gideon, you can help me with this. What have you seen behind the EU Green Deal? And what is your view in terms of the proposed regulation? And we need to speed up so we can get everyone to speak a bit about every topic. So Gideon, Please, can you address that topic for us?
Well, I think in line with Alvaro mentions, is we have some huge challenges, and let's say as coffee producing countries, in order to meet let's say the new regulatory framework, in this case specifically Europe. One important thing is, yes, we need a lot of investigation, a lot of science, but we also need to see how we can scale this up, because, and then back to what Eileen mentioned, 150,000 containers of coffee, 2,000 references per container. Those are mind-boggling numbers in the sense of how to get to this traceability. That's a huge challenge. And so much has to be done around accelerating the different innovations that are already happening. We have to figure out how we can get different solutions around biofertilizers, around packaging, around other challenges in the industry. Not keep them in, let's say, in a pilot stage, but really scale them up and be able to reach those millions of families. So I think that is one of the biggest challenges, and I believe others here can address to this issue on how would this work? Is this feasible, and especially within the time frame that has been set under the EU Green Deal. I think that is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing.
So Pilar, Alvaro mentioned the importance of cost and regulations in order to get and find that sweet spot in the balance between producer, consumer, and the environment. So Pilar, from your point of view, what do you think about the proposed regulation on the Green Deal?
Okay, so remember, I am the CFO of the company. So how's a CFO in a panel like this? Kind of weird. But remember that sustainability has to do with three aspects, which are environmental, social, but also you have to take into account the economic part of it. So I have like two hats at this moment because we are a very large producer of coffee. La Meseta has, as I told you, almost 900 hectares of coffee. And when I see that a tree is very green, I am worried because I think that this is excess of inputs. And I always want to have savings. So at the end, I believe that the equation has to be profitable for the producer, because otherwise you'll have unintended consequences. And this has been happening throughout the world. When the profitability for the farmer, I'm saying not the large farmer, but also the small farmer, all of them, people tend to leave the coffee plantation, to change crops, migrate to cities. So at the end, what I would be expecting this regulation to bring is a premium for that coffee that is produced sustainably. We have been in this path of sustainability, and of course, any person that works in the land wants to have a healthy soil, a healthy environment, likes biodiversity, especially the smallholders. I mean, the smallholders are always caring about their plots. But then you need to think on sustainable living incomes. You need to think on what are the premiums that they are going to get for that coffee. And you know that the margins in the coffee industry, when we're talking about commodities, are pretty tight. So which is the part of the value chain that actually has some added value to share, like it is the roasters or probably the retailers. And I would think that they are the ones that need actually to recognize that premium to the farmers. Of course, I am thinking that the consumer wants sustainable coffee, because otherwise it's going to be very, very difficult. For me, this Green Deal is like a transition from something that was voluntary, like through the BSS, Voluntary Sustainability Standards, and has been tried to be implemented. Unfortunately, the impact is diverse, depends on the region, on the product, on the niche of the market. And when these sort of initiatives become regulation, then you expect to be much more, you expect to see much more transparency along the value chain. And you expect this to have a positive impact on the income of small growers, because they are the ones that will need to implement and change practices.
So understanding, and you mentioned it, that circular economy is part of the Green Deal in every sense of the word, the concept. And you mentioned a few, Pilar, a minute ago, including sustainable living. Carolina, can you please tell me and take it into consideration your commercial role in the European Union to open markets for the coffee growers and the coffee producers of Colombia there? What is your perception about the Green Deal and its relation to circular economy?
Yes, indeed, the circular economy is one of the main axes of the proposed legislation. Of course, for example, for the exporting coffee industry of Colombia, of the finished product, of the roasted coffee, it's going to be quite an important role for us to prepare to make sure that that some of the materials used are, for example, recycled, but without compromising the quality. To give you an example, of course, you can use recycled papers for the packaging, but it creates more oxygenation for the coffee, which can make it fade throughout time and therefore affect the quality for the final consumer. We want, and of course, the coffee industry in the European Union is focused on this as well, because we want to preserve the quality of our products while protecting the environment and applying the rules of circular economy. In addition to that, and I want to get back to the coffee farm, one important role is the adaptation of the wet milling process in coffee. As you know, Colombia is the largest producer of washed Arabica coffee in the world. And what that means is that Café, for example, has developed new technologies constantly for an efficient use of water, for example. And we had in the past with Café, with Nespresso, Nestlé, and the Wageningen University, the largest intervention to protect 25 microbasins here in Colombia, on top of programs to benefit. Initially, it was 11,000 coffee farmers, and we ended up benefiting 75,000 coffee farmers on better practices on how to reduce the use of water. Right now, our environmental division in Colombia is working also on programs to teach coffee farmers how to recycle at the farm level and how to reduce, for example, the use of plastics at the farm. So we always want to take into consideration every single stage of the coffee production, all the way to the final consumer through our network of partners around the world, the roasters in the European Union, so that we can reuse all the products as we can to mitigate the impact of what is already out there. Back to you.
Thank you, Carolina. Reading upon the Green Deal, but especially the implementation of the Green Deal, Álvaro, please tell me briefly, what is the perception or the experience of this proposed access of the circular economy within the Green Deal at a farm level?
Yes, Carolina, I would like to highlight 2 points very briefly. The first one is you have to come up with this idea of being efficient in the use of resources. And that allows you to use the exact amount, for example, of fertilizer that a particular plot needs. Pilar was mentioning that before. I mean, you were worried when you see a very green plot because probably you're using a lot of fertilizer there. You just want to use the right amount, and to reduce the use of that is very important. Carolina was mentioning the reducing the use of water, which is also critical for us. We came from 40 liters of water per kilo of coffee that we were processing to just half a liter for washed coffee. So that's very important, and you have to design technology to keep going into that direction. And the second point is the recycling part. Eileen was also mentioning that. It's very important for us to avoid contamination. We now have a policy or a technology that is called zero contamination. It's like you don't have to contaminate water anymore. You can just return the water, reuse that water, and return it to the environment in a clean way. So for all these developments, it's very critical to have the right science to support all this kind of work and to provide that to the farmer in the proper way. That will be the way for our circular economy from the farm point of view.
Thank you very much, Alvaro. Gideon and Pilar, let's start with Gideon. What recommendation would you give the legislators? And I will ask you, in the role of funding and with all the relationships you've had with investors that are thinking about clean tech as the future, not only for their returns, but for sustainability, in world sustainability. Gideon, what suggestion would you give legislators? What is missing in this Green Deal, or what else do we need to add in order to really get funds into this clean tech and developing technology, as Alvaro says, that will enable really the outcome that is foreseen within the Green Deal?
Yeah, I think, and then I'm also responding a little bit like as a European that has seen so much European legislation coming in and having an impact on EU member states, that sometimes what is decided in Brussels is not always contextualized in the local markets. And of course, everything that is decided in Brussels is a compromise. So it's very difficult to contextualize in every single, in this case, coffee producing country. So I think from a regulator perspective, it is important. And this was also Eileen telling us earlier, as a sector, we need to come together and communicate with the Brussels regulators and talk about this topic, because it's not a press of the button and we have the entire, let's say, value chain climate resilient. This takes a lot of time, right? I mean, some implementations might take 3 to 5 years if you want to renovate, let's say, a coffee farm, or implement other types of let's say strategies around circularity, etc. So I think it has to be, that would be my suggestion when talking to regulators. Please give this, allow this some time, and not 12 months, for example, but at least a period in which we can really contextualize EU legislation into coffee producing countries to make sure we can meet that.
Pilar, so taking into account Gideon's view that we need to talk to Brussels, as he says, and be able to really bring the message of what's going on locally, what would your suggestion be if you got that chance to talk to Brussels in terms of the Green Deal?
Well, okay, I kind of agree with Gideon that sometimes when regulations are made, they lack context because they're written from a desk in Europe, and therefore they're difficult to adapt to our particular context, because remember, it's not just about being greener, but also about being socially responsible. This is the means of living of a lot of farmers across the world, and especially in Colombia, mostly smallholder farmers. So I would ask for a transition period, and also support in the means of technical assistance in order to be able to navigate that change, because it is coming. And then I would also encourage them to think about the counterfactual, because they have a hypothesis that, for example, becoming organic is the way but also you have the topic of food security and the impact of productivity. And I think that counterfactual doesn't really, I don't see that reflected in the regulation. So that would be basically some ideas.
I'm taking note. I'm pretty sure people from the delegation are also taking note. Caro, so from the National Coffee Federation, do you think there's any way we can present those voices of those locally in Brussels? First question. And second question, complementing what Pilar said, do you have anything in mind, either from the Federación Nacional de Cafeteros or from elsewhere, in order to help the locals in terms of the transition phase, and the time to transition and resources to transition, plus knowledge on how to transition? Yeah.
Yes, indeed. One of the main roles of our office in Amsterdam has been to create connections such as the one that we have established long-term with the European Coffee Federation and their important role they have played. We have spoken with 2 different consultants of the European Union regarding sorry, this happens when you are in the rural area of Colombia. So on that regard, part of what we have been doing, for example, with those consultants, is to show the face of the coffee farmers, not only from Colombia, but from around the world, because we believe that we have to come into this together and together with the whole coffee industry. We want the coffee industry to thrive in the European Union while bringing across the message of how to work together with the regulators to bring the changes that we need. On top of that, we as the FNC have participated in webinars, for example, such as this one, with the International Trade Center, with Cambridge University. We're going to participate next month, well, in July, with the World Trade Organization. They are preparing a panel on this regard, and they want the voice of the farmers from around the world. On top of that, we have been working as well with the Embassy of Colombia in Brussels, and the Ministry of Trade, of Agriculture, of the Environment, and the Ministry of Foreign Relations as well, so that we can bring the message across through our embassies in the European Union. So, but we have to keep bringing the message across. And of course, this is quite an important opportunity. My belief as well, especially with the proposed regulation on products free of deforestation, since that is still on a proposed phase, is that, and getting back to what Pilar mentioned, last week in a webinar from 4C, which is a certification, one of the experts mentioned that demand for coffee is expected to triple by 2050, to triple at a time in which the suitable land would be reduced by 50% due to global warming. How are we going to cope with that? We need to protect the coffee farmers. We need to continue working on new varieties. And in this regard, that's something Cenicafe has been quite successful on this regard. They developed rust-resistant varieties, Arabica varieties, which have been quite productive, and Cenicafe is constantly working on that. But we do need more resources from the international community, from our roasters. We have worked together for many decades, and we're very thankful for their support. But right now, we also need that support from the legislators. And delving actually into this proposed legislation, some of the suggestions we have presented are, number one, do not invent the wheel. Right now, the proposed regulation doesn't want to work or to start with certifications because it wants to become more independent. But our suggestion is make certifications with a component of protection of deforestation exempt during the first 5 years of the regulation, because that way we can focus on those small farmers who need it the most and who haven't been able to access certifications already. As Pilar mentioned, let's remember that 96% of our coffee farmers have less than 5 hectares, and we need to start working with them to continue with our programs to protect the forest, to increase the productivity at the farm level that they already have now. So that's the second message also for the regulators. Leave no one behind. So the programs have to be focused on the small farmers. Use larger regions. Right now, the initial version of the proposed regulation from November was to go all the way to the traceability through satellite tracing to each lot at the farm. So our message is use larger regions so that we can do interventions from an integrated landscape perspective instead of doing surgical extractions farmer by farmer. This way we can implement more significant programs, and instead of investing very valuable resources on increasing the traceability, like Eileen mentioned, we as the FNC, we have containers with more than 400 coffee farmers per container. That this role is going to be massive in terms of creating information when we should devote those resources to prevent deforestation at the farm level in the regions with the farmers, instead of building the traceability. So we need to find the solution from the problem, even though the other message is that the largest reforester in Colombia is actually the Colombian coffee sector. And this is quite important. We have done reforestation programs such as Manos al Agua, the one I mentioned previously with Lavazza. We just signed an agreement with Nestle for 7.5 million forestry trees for 3 departments of Colombia. And we want to continue working with the different organizations, the different roasters, to bring more forestry to the area. And for example, the preliminary proposal wants to know where exactly the coffee was grown, but not really how the living conditions of the farmer who grew it are. Of course, it has components of human rights and living income, but it's not so specific. It tends to be more focused on the traceability and the location of the farm. It has to be structured in a way in which we can assure that those farmers are receiving a proper income. And in this sense, we not only are promoting a living income, because sometimes when you translate it to Spanish, it can sound as survival income or the income needed to finish the month. And what we want to make sure is that not only these farmers can finish the month, we want to make sure that they can have a retirement plan, that they can have they can pay their hand pickers a better price. They can make sure their offspring can reach the university. So my grandfather finished only third degree in elementary school. Well, at the time also there weren't many universities, but he was able, thanks to coffee growing, to send all his children to university. We want that for all the coffee growers. We want that to thrive, because generational takeover is also one of the biggest challenges of coffee growers from around the world. So the baseline as well shall start right now and give us more time for the adaptation, as Pilar also emphasized. What that means is that as you know, sometimes in the proposed regulation, it says that it shall start in 1 year for everyone to adapt. But structuring a project and creating the baseline and implementing it usually takes more than 12 months, especially for this 96% of coffee farmers. So we do need resources, we do need cooperation, we do need to work together, and we need to continue protecting the forests, as we as the coffee sector have been doing in Colombia. And also one of the main messages is that they selected six products, and coffee is one of them, and they are going to establish per country risk levels per country. But our suggestion as well is that if they identify that sectors such as coffee in Colombia are low risk levels, they shouldn't be required by this regulation. Why? Because we are already low risk. We already know that. There might be other countries that are higher risk, but it has to be more selective on which countries have these implications, to focus on them and to allow the Colombian sector to continue growing coffee in the way we have been doing it. Because even when you check the Colombian coffee growing areas, it actually has been reduced the total area. The productivity has gone up during the last 10 years. But on top of that, it's not really linked to deforestation. So those are the main messages we have been bringing across for the regulators and the whole industry. And this is a great opportunity to have everyone here to continue bringing the message across, and to motivate everyone through all your channels to bring this view of helping also coffee growers, the coffee region, because it would be beneficial for the coffee industry in the European Union and for all our supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. So we're going to round up now with this last question, and we're going to start with Alvaro. So we can open the floor to questions from the audience. From Carolina, I got the message that we need to think bigger, and we have to collaborate and work together, use technology and innovate in order to keep the tradition, but move forward in productivity. In that sense, Alvaro, very briefly, please tell us what is an innovative idea you can give to entrepreneurs who are listening to us today in order to bridge that gap between this goal that we want to reach and the roadmap ahead.
Well, Carolina, well, I think there are many ways in which innovators and entrepreneurs can provide some solutions to what we're living today. One point that I see all the time is how to use or to reuse byproducts of coffee production. That's something that people are all the time interested in to know what can they do with the pulp, what can they do with the mucilage that is produced from coffee, also from wood that comes out of coffee farms. I'm looking at everything from the coffee farm perspective. And certainly there are many options today that can be applied to those byproducts. And I guess the work of the entrepreneurs is to try to look ways in which this transformation can be actually moved efficiently from the farm into the general public. There are many options out there from producing ethanol, fibers, food, but certainly we need some ideas to move that those facts of the applications that can be used today into our everyday life.
Thank you very much, Alvaro. So to close this panel, I want to ask two favors now. Turn on the camera, please, because everyone wants to do a picture, but cameras are off. So let's turn on the cameras now. We'll do a picture quickly before we end the panel. Thank you, everyone. I'm gonna Pilar, can you take the camera? And please, everyone, feel free to Thank you very much. Now, I am going to reverse the order, and I'm going to start looking at questions on from the audience and reverse the order. Caro, in one word, what innovative idea for entrepreneurs? I don't know how you're going to fit that in one word, but you can do it. And then Pilar and then Gideon. One word, innovative ideas for entrepreneurs to bridge the gap between goals and the roadmap. Caro, I think your audio is off. I don't hear Carolina right now. Do you want me to go to Pilar? Pilar, do you have your word while we get Carolina back?
I mean, it would be like, not a word, but a phrase, like linking technology to sustainability.
Okay, fantastic. Gideon?
I would go for scaling. We need scalable solutions. So I think in order to solve this this innovation conundrum in the industry, I think we need scaling. Yeah.
Well, we get Carolina back. Eileen, do you want to share your thoughts on one word to bridge that gap?
I relate to Gideon. I think it's the need to mainstream the solutions.
Fantastic, mainstream solutions. Okay, so now the audience has the word. I'm going to look at the chat, and it says, "Are trials in coffee plantations in place with biochar application on the soil?" Who wants to take that one? That's from Thomas. Thank you for participating, Thomas. Are trials in coffee plantations taking place right now with biochar application on the soil? Does anyone have the answer for that one? Go ahead, Alvaro.
Well, certainly there are many ideas today on how to increase this carbon sequestration in soils. One of those is to use this kind of biocarbon or activated carbon products. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of evidence today on how they work. Today, everything is very theoretical, and we need to see more field experiments to know what is happening with that. So we know that the technology is out there, but we haven't seen yet results or experiments in which we can actually support those ideas for the farmers.
Adrian is asking that she would like to hear from ITC roundtables and the economic incentives as well. Who wants to take that question? Caro, hi, thank you.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry, I lost connection for a little while. Sorry?
Go ahead.
So regarding ITC working tables, we believe it has been quite an important role they have been playing, because they have been doing different working tables, one from the perspective of the farmers from around the world, from the different sectors. One thing we have identified is that it should be more tailor-fit for every sector, because the supply chains differ. I'll give you an example. One banana that is produced in Magdalena in Colombia is very, like, you can trace it back, trace it forward to the European Union. But in coffee, as I mentioned, one container might have 400 coffee growers, all the transactions, and then at the end, for the final consumer, let's say a roaster has a different blend or 3 or 4 origins. So you might have one package of roasted coffee that already has 1,600 farmers from around the world. So it requires to understand better, and for us, we also need to communicate better to the regulators how our supply chain works in the different producing countries, so that they can adapt it more appropriately to the needs, to the local needs. We all want to prevent, for example, deforestation in our regions. We want to do that, but most probably the proposed regulation right now is not the one that is going to lead us to that. And on top of that, the ITC, the International Trade Center, has been working on that. They have been quite organized. They are preparing documents on each of the working tables, and they have worked together. They have an executive program in which we already participated with the Sustainability Institute from Cambridge University, to also tell this message to all the future leaders, or the ones who already work in important companies such as Starbucks, Nestle, all the roasters of the important roasters, to bring that message across and to understand better what is going to happen. And then on top of that, as I mentioned, they are collaborating with the World Trade Organization so that we can better understand that. And here there is another point we want to bring across. As you know, the UK is working on prevention program of deforestation, but it has some differences, for example, with the case of the proposed regulation of the European Union. Japan also has different restrictions, and the US Congress is working on another initiative. One of my concerns is that maybe one day we will end up, if you want to export to different markets, you would need to read different regulations, and each one has different requirements and due diligence. It would be better that all of us come together, all the markets, all the governments, and have something that is more achievable, instead of, for example, in Colombia, because someone told me, like, okay, if it becomes challenging to export to the European Union, you can divert that coffee to another market. That's not going to work that way. We have fresh coffee throughout the year, and we don't want to tell one of our farmers, no, for now we have to work with you and you cannot export to the European Union. We need to be prepared and ready for all the different markets, but it would also be good that they work together through the World Trade Organization so that we can implement everything that is needed, and possibly gather more resources so that those implementations in countries such as Colombia, in countries such as Brazil, in Vietnam, can take place and create a better impact. Back to you, Kat.
Okay, so we are almost out of time right now, so I'm going to summarize 2 questions in one. You already talked about economic incentives, Caro, but people want to know about technology, specifically blockchain, as an alternative to traceability, and they want to touch upon the limits on microlots, because we've spoken about scaling and collaborating and thinking big. So what are the limits really on terms of the microlots?
Yes, that's a great question. We have been promoting programs of microlots because we believe that those can transfer better premiums to the farmers. They give incentives for them to improve the quality. There is more recognition about who grew the coffee and their story. Of course, those coffees, due to the traceability and the custody that you need to keep for them, are more expensive, of course, and the quality. So that's one of the first goals, but you cannot export all Colombia's coffee production that comes to the international markets through microlots, because it would be a massive endeavor, would be very expensive, and possibly we already have a lot of inflationary pressures in the European Union. Most probably it wouldn't be able to absorb all these fantastic coffees, which I love, those are my favorite, but the market still and the consumers are not ready to afford that. That's the first thing. And with blockchain, we have been working, for example, one of the initiatives is Farmer Connect, and we believe it's one of the best ones out there because it's also specialized on the coffee sector. It was an initiative by Sucafina, which is one of our important commercial partners. And through that, we launched, for example, for Hema, which is a Dutch chain, a brand of blockchain traceability from Colombia, Rainforest Alliance. It's a fantastic program. What challenge do we see with blockchain? For example, in order to assure that blockchain, you need each link of the supply chain to confirm that the transaction took place. So for example, I sell to Gideon coffee. So Gideon has to say, yes, I bought from the FNC this coffee, this volume at this price, and I have to confirm that I sold to Gideon that coffee at that price and those conditions. But it also means that to have that traceability all the way to the farmer, you have to train the farmer on the new technology. You have to make sure he has a connectivity to the internet, which we don't really have right now in all the producing regions. So making sure you build that endeavor throughout for our 540,000 coffee farmers for that traceability would be quite expensive as well, and it requires training. There are some coffee farmers, of course, let's say the average age of our coffee farmers is 54 years old. As I mentioned, that's one of the concerns. So we have farmers who are 75 years old. Sometimes they don't really want to adopt that technology. We can train them, but we have to make sure that those farmers really want to adopt it and work with it. We will continue working with it. We believe it's very good. It is also a future. We hope connectivity in our rural areas will continue to expand so that they can access that, and most probably the new generations of coffee farmers, it would be easier to train them and for them to adopt them. And I would like also to add to that regard of Farmer Connect that they also have a component called Thank My Farmer. What it means is that, for example, once you buy the coffee in the European Union, you go to this website and you want to add some donation, sometimes to a program or to a coffee farmer because you believe their coffee is exceptional, absolutely fantastic, and that way you can transfer resources directly through cryptocurrencies back to the farmer. So that is the future, and we are fond of it. We have to keep working on it, but it has the challenges that we already presented. Thank you. Back to you.
So I've seen that the team is helping us with links to more information for those who have questions on specifics about the roundtables and the Green Deal on the chat. Please take a look at the chat. You'll find links there to more specifics on what Carolina, Gideon, Pilar, and Alvaro have been discussing. There are a few more questions there online right now. Specifically, Thomas speaks about biochar. What are the stakeholders in order to make biochar pilots possible on the territory? And Gideon will help me moderate right now the conversation with the audience, as he reminded me very nicely that we have until 11 a.m. to answer questions. So those who want to still pose more questions can do so. I'll be regrettably, I have to leave right now because we have another meeting, but I know there are more questions, so we have more time to answer them. Gideon, you can see the questions on the chat. And yes, and thank you on my behalf to Pilar, Gideon, Alvaro, Caro, and Eileen, and everyone that's been connected from Bogota as my just most recent role in the Secretary of Economic Development. Food security is an issue, but also it is very important to do this technology catch up and close the gap between what we're doing and we should be doing in terms of implementation of innovation in order to help foster development. I am very, very happy that this conversation is taking place right now because we have created the agency to commercialize food, not only coffee, but food generally. And we have an agency for that that uses data and analytics. So I think this is extremely opportune, pertinent for what's going to be moving forward in terms of food security for the country, not only coffee sector. So thank you very much for all this information. And Gideon, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Carolina, for supporting us and moderating the panel. Let's tackle the first one that was on the bio car. What pilots are happening? I'd like to pass it on to Alvaro, who might have a better overview of what's happening Colombia-wide on these types of pilot projects. What's happening on the side of the federation?
Yes. Well, I would like to summarize not only biochar, but many other initiatives that come up in these times when the fertilizers, for example, the price is through the roof, and everybody's trying to come up with a solution to solve a problem that we are living today. My message is this. I mean, it's very important in coffee to be patient. This is the first thing. Coffee is a perennial crop. Any assay that you do in coffee, it takes maybe 4 years, 5 years to see actually how it works. So you have to be very careful in accepting or replacing old technologies, in the sense that the farmer is the one that is finally leaving all this change in his farm. And again, in the case of biochar and many other products that we see today, it's very important to set up the proper experiments to see how they work, not only in the short term, because coffee doesn't work that way, but in the long term, which I'm talking about 4 to 5 years. So again, it's very important to know exactly how this new piece of technology is going to fit in the whole system before we make any replacements or any investments in money that probably at the end is not going to be reflected in income for the farmer.
Yeah, I think that's we need to be prudent. Don't rush it, and also, and I think that goes back to what we discussed before on the communication. We need to know if we invest money in let's say in one of those solutions, that in 3, 4, 5 years this will still be the accepted let's say new fertilizer or new ingredient. Otherwise, we're going to be blocked again when the coffee arrives in the European market. So yeah, I think that's a very good point, Alvaro. I want to switch to Pilar because there's a question on microlots, and the question is, of course, we know that microlots in let's say in terms of pricing give you a higher value for your end product, but the whole idea behind premium products is that not the entire market is a premium product. So this is a solution maybe for the top 10. And maybe Pilar, you can give a little bit perspective on this. Is let's say the micro lot strategy, is this a solution for the entire industry? Because let's say any type of coffee product that goes into European Union needs to meet the new norm, and not just the micro lot or the premium coffee. So how do you see this from your perspective as a producer?
Well, I think that microlots until now have gone to a specific niche, and this niche is actually limited. I know farmers and I know companies that have built their strategy around creating direct link with companies abroad, based on the profile of the sensory profile of the coffee that they produce, the methods through which it is processed. And it is a beautiful experience and a beautiful product. But we need to understand that the coffee trade in the world is about conventional coffee. I don't really know the percentage, but I would say almost 90% is conventional coffee. This is what actually roasters demand. If you offer a super premium coffee, in fact, they will say, I'm not interested. So when companies find a niche in that market, it is amazing. They maintain the client, they have high margins, but the volumes are small. And for example, if you're going to be a trader of specialty coffees, you need to have different origins, because this is what the consumer wants, to look at a company that is able to provide different origins. This is possible in countries like Colombia, because Colombia, as Carolina was mentioning, has different climates, different latitudes, and this actually influences the profile of the coffee. So Colombia is a very interesting country to produce microlots, but it's always going to be about better premiums and small volumes until now. I am not sure that with the Green Deal, this will actually change. It would be beautiful that it changed in that direction, but I don't think the market's there yet.
Yeah, interesting. So this could be partly a part of the solution, but it's not the end all. Thanks for that, Pilar. There's a very interesting question coming up. Yeah, sure, Caro, go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, I will talk on behalf of the FNC as an exporter. We have a program, a quite interesting program called Craft by FNC. It has been growing substantially, and of course, as Pilar mentioned, it is a small percentage, but it is a growing market. We have noticed, for example, we were talking with a very large roaster in Finland, and he was telling us, let's remember, Finland is the largest consumer per capita, and he was mentioning that the younger the youth are drinking less coffee per day, but they are more fond of the higher quality, better methods. You see that trend in Bogota. Bogota has amazing coffee bars, specialized with baristas that know everything. Now we have the world barista champion, who is Colombian. He's from Tolima. We're very proud of him. And I do see that trend growing in the European Union, in the UK. I believe cities such as London are the port of entry of the specialty coffees. Of course, it is quite a challenge to continue growing. Those coffees are more expensive, but we believe that youth, those new consumers, really want to try those varieties and everything Colombia has to offer, or the different producing countries. So this is also an invitation for those entrepreneurs to keep looking, going to coffee bars, trying different varieties, trying different methods of preparation, V60, Chemex, Aeropress, because all of them give different attributes to the palate, and possibly they can bring some new ideas. For example, espresso machines that are more environmentally friendly, that use less energy. All these are welcome ideas for the ones who join us today. Back to you, Gideon.
Thanks, Caro, for this addition. This is something it's still developing. That's interesting. I think let me see if Eileen is still there, and then yes, Eileen is there. So there's another question that maybe Eileen can address. And then there's another one for Banusi as well, and that is one about the EU government. Are they listening to us? What is practical, and how can we be adaptable to this? Eileen, what is your feel on this? Are they listening?
Hopefully, hopefully they are. I think it really depends as well on the policymaker, on the institution. We've got three. We've got the European Commission, we've got the European Parliament, and we've got the Council. Three very different institutions. So what we are seeing is that the European Parliament is actually listening. So the arguments that we are putting forward, the position papers like the risk assessment approach proposal as an alternative to geolocalization that we shared in the link, is something that they are a little bit sensitive to. The European Commission, to be honest, not so much. However, now the decision is in the hands of the Parliament and of the Council. So doing our utmost, and I would really like to link this to the need to mainstreaming. So what we are doing is just raising awareness of the facts. So we just explain how the coffee supply chain works. Following up on Pilar's comment, yes, it is 90% of coffee imported into the EU that is mainstream commercial coffee. So therefore, it is brought according to certain requirements that the market establishes. So it's not because it comes from a specific region, from a specific plot of land. No, it's because it's got specific characteristics. They're established by contract, and that enables the European roaster brands to always have the same taste profile in their cup. Because at the end of the day, the European consumer, what they look for a lot is that whenever they taste a coffee from X brand, it always tastes the same. They don't want surprises. They want a surprise when they go into a coffee shop and they taste a micro lot, but not for their standard lots of times coffee. So this is the situation today. So wheeling back super fast to how do we influence the European Commission? This is something that we clearly explain, how coffee is a commodity, how it is brought. And in regards to traceability, we've been very practical. The European Commission refers to Galileo and Copernicus. Copernicus is the EU satellite monitoring system that enables to determine where deforestation is. And Galileo would be like the European GPS location system. So what we did is we reached out to them because the European Commission was saying, with these tools, you should be able to ensure traceability. So having reached out to them, they were very receptive. And we are about to kick off a meeting together with the EU space program, in which they have accepted to take coffee on board as a case study. This is really fantastic because what they're going to do is with publicly available tools, so Copernicus and with Galileo traceability systems, what they're going to try and implement, we obviously can't do it for all coffee, we'll have to find a representative area. What they're trying to determine is this feasible? Is geolocalization feasible? But more, is further, is that chain of custody of the information, that traceability that is really easy for micro lots, but impossible for large batches of commercial coffee. Is it possible and to which extent? Because this traceability really requires obviously mobile phones, and it also requires access to data. So it's not blockchain, but it's something very similar to blockchain. So therefore, it will be the EU space program that at the end of the day will be able to determine, yes, it is feasible at this cost. So at this cost, feasible under these circumstances, is it really worth investing all this money to trace back to each of the locations, or is it better to go back to a specific region that has a specific issue and invest that money in a regeneration, not only of the land, but also investing in those other two pillars of sustainability, which is the social and the economical aspect. So this is the message that we're trying to convey to the EU authorities. So it's super practical, based on facts. This is the situation, and this is how we see it to be resolved. So we'll be reporting shortly on that initiative taken by the EU space program, because I think it will be really relevant for us. And at the end of the day, it will not be us as an industry saying this. It will be the tools of the EU. So it will be endorsed, and I think it will add a new layer of credibility to what we are saying as loud as we can, as ECF, as Federación Nacional de Cafeteros de Colombia. I don't think we've ever been more aligned on something than on this proposal. We want to make it work, but we need the tools that have not yet been developed. Not even the information system has been developed by the EU. That information system in which you have to introduce the coordinates has not been developed yet. So therefore, we're trying to make them think and really assess, rather than assuming a decision sitting in Brussels, inviting them to go to the land, go to Colombia, see how it works, go to Brazil, because I think that it will be really eye-opening for them.
Yeah.
Sorry for such a long answer.
No, very good, Eileen, and it basically is a great bridge to my question to Banusia, because how can we offer all those smallholders access to these international markets like the European Union? There's a lot happening, as we know now from Eileen. But how can you were talking a lot from the perspective of Colombia, but it's of course it's a lot bigger. You can give a better perspective on, let's say, markets like Brazil and in general rest of the world. How can we involve them, the smallholders, Banusia?
Well, Gideon, I think we can have the involvement of them if they think that this will be valuable for their lives, for their family, for their business in some cases. And Eileen was talking about we will need mobile phones. We will need mobile phones, and we will need internet. We will need infrastructure. And then for this, we will need a lot of engagement for all the governments too. Yeah. Because there are something that the private sector can do, but there are other things that it's impossible for the private sector, and we need to be together, as I said in the beginning, with partnership. And it's hearing us. Yes, they are listening us. They are hearing us, all of us, and we are talking to them very frequently too. And the point is to have all these people together, looking for the fairest solution for all the links of the chain, from the producers until the consumers. As Eileen said, the consumers, if they go to a coffee shop, they would like to know everything about the history of the cup of coffee that they are taking. But if they go to the supermarket, they will buy a package of coffee that they expect to have the same profile, same sensory profile that they used to have last month or a year ago, maybe. And for these coffees and for these consumers, we will need to have all this traceability. For what? We don't know yet. What for? Which kind of value, or how much does it cost? And who will pay for it? They are saying to us that they will pay for everything, but this will add value for all the 60 countries that we have, for all the regions that we have coffees in the world? Maybe not. Maybe we can show to them that there is some areas with major risks and other areas with low risks, and we can manage that according to the areas, according to the regions, the micro regions, and using this kind of space tool that Eileen, you were talking about, will be not very easy, but less complex, as I can say, to realize what is the real situation that we have. And then we can engage the people as soon as while we have the compromise and the engagement of the governments and the European Union and other governments that are thinking about similar rules and regulations.
Yeah. Thanks, Vanusia. Yeah, I think that's very important also in the sense that do we really need it? And of course, if it's mandatory by law, then it is. But the question, does it add value, commercial or let's say environmental, to the end product? So I think that that's an interesting question that needs to be raised. We're almost at the end of this very informative session with you guys. So I have one question I'd like to raise. Carolina already mentioned that the average age of a Colombian coffee farmer is 54 years. Pilar mentioned that La Meseta is also a family business. So coffee industry, I would say, I think it's for 90% it's coffee, it's family businesses. But to involve the next generation into the coffee industry, get them interested, we're now facing with huge challenges, reduction of areas that can actually grow coffee, let's say consumers that are more demanding, legislators that are more demanding. What is your feel? And a quick question, or let's say a quick response from all of you. You believe that innovation or new technology could, first of all, get involved the next generation, become a coffee farmer, and face those challenges that only they have to face on the ground. So let's start with Pilar, and then go to Alvaro, Eileen, Vanusia, Carolina. Pilar, porfa.
Okay, so I believe that in this transition towards sustainability, we're going to start to see that companies will dedicate a bit more budget to comply with regulations and to move in the certain direction. So this will create more linkages between the buying commercial teams and the farmers, which may imply that technological tools will get there in an atomized way to the farms, as well as increasing connectivity. I've seen in other programs, not particularly in coffee, but I've experienced it in the cacao market here in Colombia, how technology incentivizes the participation of young people. Because, you know, young people are always with the phone and they think, I mean, or what I see is that they embrace it because they believe or they feel like part of the change, and they think that they can contribute to building a new kind of business. So I think definitely yes, of course, always. I remember I'm the CFO. Profitability has to be there. The business has to be sustainable in the three components: environmental, social, and financially, of course. So yeah, I think it's going to be possible.
Thanks, Pilar. Álvaro?
Gideon, I've been working here for 30 years, and always the average age of the coffee producer is 55. So it means that through all the years, there is new people coming into the business, and somebody is getting out of the business. So I think coffee is something fantastic. It's always being attractive for young people. And today's technology, I don't know what it's going to be tomorrow, but definitely we see a flux of young people coming in all the time. And I'm happy for that.
Great answer. Eileen?
Yeah, I'm sure that innovation makes it more attractive, but I think the same applies to roasters here in the EU. The average age is exactly the same for the family businesses, and it's difficult to make it attractive for the new generation that are seeking that profitability and doing something of their own. I think before we had a tradition that we did follow our grandfathers, our father's steps, but now I think more and more families are encouraging for everyone to find their own path. What we've seen in the EU, people have in the past abandoned the rural life, so there's not so much agriculture. It's difficult to find shepherds, it's difficult to find people to work the land in the EU. But it is true that people are so stressed out in the city that they're actually voluntarily going back home and trying to be entrepreneurs, and they're actually succeeding because they do come with new fresh ideas and with a completely different approach. They're doing it because they want to do it, because they've checked out the life in the city and they prefer the values that they can find out in the country. So I really do hope this is the case for coffee, because we are fully aware from where we sit in the EU that everything is dependent on those farmers, is agriculture 100%. So always we'll do our utmost to be able to ensure that it's as attractive as possible. But indeed, going back to your question, technology, it can, and I'm sure it will help make it at least more exciting and more challenging, but hopefully not too much.
Great point, Eileen. Vanusia?
Well, Gideon, I will tell you my personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 17, I decided to go out from my town, from the coffee plantation, and to go to the big towns. I went to Rio de Janeiro for studying. I don't want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that the life of a coffee producer was very boring. This was more than 40 years ago. I'm 60 now. Then it was 43 years ago. And we are still in the same.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think we need to reflect about that.
Mm-hmm.
Why I decided to come back, and why the people, the traders in reality 20 years ago convinced me to work with coffee, because I decided to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Not the business as usual, not to do exactly the same. Then I think this is one of the things that we need to think now. And I agree with Eileen that the people came back to the rural life, mainly during the pandemic. many people start to think that it was safe to be in the field. It was safer to be in the field. It was more quiet to be there and things like this. And including on this, the technology, innovation, many of the concepts of sustainability, many of the concepts of quality, concepts about fermentation, all these things that are new, that are innovation, this can get the attention of the young generation. And they can start, they will do specialty coffee for all their lives? No, we are sure that not. But they can enter in the road of the coffee production, doing something that it's different from their parents, their grandfathers, and all their families. And they can start doing like this with researchers, with institutions like Café, working with them and going to the field for doing something different. I think this can attract this younger generation, and we can put this average a little bit, at least a little bit lower than this, Alvaro. Maybe we can get this a little bit lower.
Very good, Manusia. Yeah, nothing new under the sun. So that's interesting. Yeah. Carolina, final word for you.
Yes, thanks to everyone on this. Well, that's the big question, Gideon, and it always comes to a better margin. Give me one second. It always comes to a better margin, which is higher prices are lower costs. So 2 and 3 years ago, we had a huge coffee crisis. We heard coffee farmers, or the youth, the 18-year-olds and the 20-year-olds, we ran surveys, and they said, during that crisis, they said, I do not want to enter the coffee business because I have seen my father suffer all his life to finish the month. It shall not happen again. We as an industry have to prevent that from happening. Of course, higher premiums for the quality, promote this youth that is entering the coffee business to produce a better coffee. And at the end, I'm going to tell you a beautiful story on this regard. We have created an innovation, and it happened during the pandemic, called La Taza Móvil. It's the moving cup. And what it does is that it's a small truck that comes to all the small municipalities, to the larger coffee municipalities, and it roasts the coffee from these farmers and allows them to try again the higher quality that they may have. So on this regard, we have some farmers that never tried their coffee before in their life, and they have been in the coffee business for about 30 years. So this innovation is promoting this youth to stay on the farm, but to bring the coffee to the Taza Móvil, and to possibly identify those coffee qualities that are at the top. And for this, we have gathered, and we have contests almost every year. We gather 1,700 micro lots to select the best ones and to sell them in auctions to be able to provide higher prices. We're coming to the matter of costs, and this is a subject we haven't had the time to mention, but the high fertilizer prices. We do need more or better fertilizers or biofertilizers, but we need to solve this crisis. And it's going to be a crisis for the whole world. It's happening already, but most probably the implications in terms of the food security of the planet are not going to be seen until next year or in 2 years. That's that. And the costs of these regulations shall not be transferred to the farmer. And we also need to create a better communication strategy for the consumers to recognize those higher prices and premiums that would allow us to protect the environment. The other matter would be to try to develop, for the innovators who are with us today, more affordable, for example, solar panels for the farms so that they can save energy. Connectivity is one of the main answers in the surveys we run for our youth in order to stay at the farm level. Better roads, better infrastructure, it applies to all the coffee production, and especially here in Colombia, where we have these beautiful mountain ranges, the transportation is a challenge. And I want to close with a story, and it's in terms of international cooperation. cooperation. That's the other thing that we need, and we invite everyone with us here today to continue in that endeavor. We thank our partners to continue in those programs. We have programs for the youth, of course, and we have a beautiful one throughout the years. It has been renovating with the FICO Foundation and Colruyt Foundation, which is Colruyt is a supermarket chain in Belgium. So these beautiful stories that one of these youth that entered the program about 2 or 3 years ago was able to participate in one quality contest in Santander, and he was able to reach the third position in terms of the best quality of Santander. These are the beautiful stories that we want to convey, to tell the youth that there is a future in coffee, and to continue promoting that they can bring the world better quality and also receive a better price. Thank you, Gideon. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Carolina. We have come to the end of this this webinar. It took us 2 hours to come to this beautiful conclusion. I think what we here concluded is that yes, definitely there is a future. We need to be collaborating a lot on these topics. We have great people here on this this webinar today, representing great organizations, and as long as we can keep working together in order to make these new goals, these new challenges that we're facing across the industry and across the value chain. So I think it's has been a great lesson. I've learned a lot today. I want to thank everybody, all the panelists, all the speakers today, for their generous time being here with us today. Thank you very much. Also want to thank the audience. You've showed up. A lot of people came in, spent some time with us. New people came in and then left again. So we had over 100 listeners. We have more than 250 people that registered for this event. We will share a recording of this event afterwards, share it with all of you that are here today, as well as the people that weren't able to make it. It goes to show how a lot of people are involved, interested in this topic. We will keep everybody that was here today and the one that registered up to date on new developments, what are happening with regards to innovation, technology in the industry. So please keep an eye on your socials, keep an eye on your email. And for now, I would like to thank you very much for participating, and enjoy the rest of your day, afternoon, or wherever you are. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.